Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I am so excited to share my Hush haul with you guys. I actually was sent these products from Hush in return and in exchange for a review. So even though these products were sent to me, this is a 100% honest review of Hush.com and the palettes from Bad Habit that they sent me. If you guys have been to my channel before, you know that I am 100% honest. I don't care if a brand has sent me something, I want to give my full honest opinion because as a consumer who watches YouTube and buys things because of YouTubers, when I receive something and I know it sucks and a YouTuber has talked about how it's amazing, it drives me bananas, and so I never want it to be that way on my channel. Just because I got this for free does not mean that I'm not going to say if it's not good. So if I think it is worth it and worth it for you to purchase, I will tell you that. If not, I won't. You guys know. You know what to expect. This is a no drama, no BS channel, and I'm gonna keep it that way. So Hush.com is actually a really cool website. They sell tons of super affordable things, makeup brushes, skincare, Korean skincare, e.l.f. products, NYX products, everything from Bad Habit, just a lot of things. They also sell some high-end products, but on the kind of average that are really affordable, and they do free shipping if you hit $25, which since I got these palettes for free, I didn't spend money or pay for shipping, but hitting shipping at $25 is a pretty good number, so I think that's really cool. But the biggest thing that Hush is known for is honestly their eyeshadow palettes. That's the first way I heard about them, and their highlight palettes too. I never got their highlighting palette, which I think was a dupe for the Anastasia Beverly Hills one, but they have tons of eyeshadow palette dupes, and I still don't know how I feel about it. Some of these are so spot on dupes that it makes me a little bit uncomfortable because they are just ripping off other brands, but at the same time, I mean, there are people out there who can't afford the real thing, and so to offer a product that's such a dupe for the real thing that's at such a discounted price, I mean, if that's the way you have to go, you have to go. For me, personally, I don't really enjoy purchasing, like, spot on, this is a for sure dupe. If you find a dupe for something, that's really exciting. Like, for example, I love the Ruby Woo MAC lipstick, and a perfect dupe for that is the shade Trust Me Lippy Sticks from ColourPop. But ColourPop didn't make Trust Me as a specific Ruby Woo dupe. You know what I mean? It just is a coincidence. These eyeshadow palettes are literally dupes for high-end palettes. Like, for example, have you guys ever seen a palette that looks like this? Because this looks exactly like the modern Renaissance palette. Yeah. So I'm going to just show y'all a haul, let you guys know what I got, how the items were packaged, all things like that, what they retail for, and maybe what palette they're trying to be a dupe for. And then at the end of this video, I will have tons of swatches of each and every palette. I decided to actually do swatches for each palette because I want you guys to see how they perform, and I want to make sure that I talk about each and every shadow so that I just give you guys a full, honest review, give you everything you need to know. So without further ado, let's start talking about these palettes. So first and foremost, I was actually really impressed with how these palettes were packaged. Each one came in a little bubble sleeve, which is really nice to make sure that they don't break in transit and that they're still in a really nice condition when they arrive. And then every single palette also had one of these little plastic sleeves in between the mirror and the eyeshadows, which is also a really nice touch. Not all palettes do that, and so having this just ensures that everything stays nice and clean, and I really appreciate that. So the first palette we're going to talk about is the Royals palette from Bad Habit. It came in this little sleeve like so. I have taken out all the little film that protects the mirror. The packaging is really nice. It does have a mirror, and then here are your shadows. The packaging is cardboard but has a little bit of that magnetic close. Similar to ColourPop packaging, which is the same, has that, you know, magnetic close. But I do feel like this packaging is a little bit cheaper than ColourPop. This palette retails for $10 on the website, and this is a perfect dupe for the Anastasia. This is a perfect dupe for the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette, which let me grab that one so you can see them side by side. Even though some of the shades aren't necessarily in the same spot, All of the shades are accounted for, and I will be doing an in-depth palette comparing the two of these and doing an eyeshadow look in a video coming up. So stay tuned for that because I do want to show comparison swatches, but I wanted this haul to just be about the Bad Habit palettes and not about anything else. So I will promise you guys, I promise, because I'm really bad about doing this, but I will be doing a comparison eyeshadow look on each side of these two palettes. But like I said, this retails for $10. It has 14 shades, and you know, this is really, really nice. I will show y'all swatches at the end of this video, like I said 1,000 times, but I just want you guys to know, if you're curious, they are coming. The light shades in this palette are all really, really nice and really blendable. The deeper shades are a little bit more chalky and patchy, but you can build them up with a brush. Overall, I would say if you are thinking about the Modern Renaissance palette, this would be a really great option. A lot of the shades were really impressive. Are they as beautifully pigmented as the ones from Anastasia? No. But for a dupe, this is a pretty dang good dupe of the Modern Renaissance palette, and if you're wanting to see swatches and have me talk a little bit more about specific shades, just wait for the end of the video. The next palette is the Aura palette. This retailed for $12. It came in a box just like this. It is also from Bad Habit. It is also cruelty-free, and this palette is a perfect dupe for the Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism palette. This is what the eyeshadows look like, and it did come with a mirror. This packaging is a little bit more sturdy than the Royals palette, and this is actually pretty nice packaging. I would say this is extremely comparable to ColourPop packaging, and for getting 14 shades for $12, it's also a really, really good price. So these shades are all very beautiful, especially these metallic shades are just gorgeous. You will see swatches at the end of this video, but these are, I don't know if you can see, I'll swatch on the back of my hand. I know I'm going to do swatches at the end of this video, but I wanted to just show you guys that these are really, really beautiful, creamy shades, and they apply beautifully to the eye, especially wet. So a lot of the metallics in this palette apply much better wet or dampened. They're really beautiful, but some of the shades are a little bit chalky. I'll swatch a couple of them for you guys. And then this black down here, the shade Immortal, is Immortal, is beautiful, you guys. It is chalky. It's a chalky black, but once you blend it out, it is very, very pigmented, and I would say comparable to a Morphe eyeshadow or something like that. So here's some of the swatches on the back of my hand just so I can whet y'all's appetite. Some of these metallic shades can be a little bit chunky, but like I said, if you go in wet, they apply okay. And the mattes are all really blendable and really nice. I feel like that's kind of a common theme with all of these Bad Habit palettes, is they're not bad at all. And they swatch similarly to ColourPop shadows, Morphe shadows. Some of my favorite shadows in general are the ones from ColourPop, and these swatch very similar to ColourPop shadows. But overall, I felt like this was a pretty nice palette. Would I purchase this with my own money? No, because I actually wasn't a huge fan of the shades in general. Is one of the reasons I never purchased the Prism palette. It's just I felt like a lot of these shades were just really dark and deep and just kind of blended into each other, and then a lot of them I felt like I already had in my collection. The only shades I feel like are really, really unique to this palette would be Ethereal, which is this really beautiful blue, Destiny, which is this really beautiful purple, and then I just swatched Haze. Haze is not the unique shade. It's this one right here, Energy, which is a neon yellow, and unfortunately the shade was pretty chunky and pretty patchy and not the best one in the palette. Now if you do build this up, obviously you can get it to full pigment, but overall I would say skip out on the Aura palette. But I really have enjoyed having this palette, and I feel like there are some shades from this that I will definitely enjoy using in the future. Now let's talk about the Retro Love palette. This is the Subculture dupe from Bad Habit. It came in a similar box to the Aura palette and is the same size with the same packaging, which I really like. This packaging is so much better than the one they did for the Royals palette, like I've said already. It feels a lot more sturdy. Every palette, like I said, comes with the mirror, and then here is the inside. So I was really glad I got this palette, which does retail for, got them all written down here, Retro Love, $10. So this one is $10, the Aura is $12. I was actually really glad I got this palette because it made me realize that I don't need the Subculture palette. And I think I've talked about this a little bit on my channel. I love the Modern Renaissance palette, and honestly, if I had to pick a second palette from them, it would be the Soft Glam that just came out. I love those neutral shades. I just feel like Anastasia has tried to dabble into some of these deeper, richer colors, and they just come out chalky or muddy and just kind of all blend together. Now these are beautiful on their own. If I'm gonna put this shade Free Love, which is gonna look a little bit chalky, especially when you swatch it, because it is a pretty chunky shade. If I'm gonna put this all over the lid, I'm gonna need to blend it out and build it up so much. And I just feel like it is not worth the time and the energy to create an eyeshadow look with colors like this in this formula. I don't know if that makes sense. Some of the shades in here are beautiful. I felt like all of these more warm tone neutral shades like Peach and Flower Power and Fab and Rebel were beautiful. I mean, who doesn't love one of these mustard yellow shades that just swatches beautifully and applied gorgeously to the eyes? I mean, that's one of the shades that I personally, it's just my favorite. But then you get into some of these darker shades and they just got muddied. You'll see in the swatches, I really tried to build it up and make good swatches for you guys so you could see, you could build up the pigment. And these are beautiful with the brush, but at the end of the day, I just felt like a lot of these shadows just looked a little bit chalky and patchy, and you can blend them out, but you gotta go, you know, back and forth, and then there you go, you've built up your pigment. So really enjoyed receiving this palette. Some of the shades are beautiful. Even Icon and Psychedelic, which are supposed to mimic the more electric and duochrome pink shade, I just felt were a little bit chalky and patchy. Again, a lot of these metallics apply better wet for these palettes specifically. Some of the other eyeshadow palettes I'm going to show you guys, the metallics were beautiful. So it might just be the formula in these. The standout shade in this one was the shade right here, Revolution, which is absolutely insanely pigmented and smooth. Like, look, I accidentally got a little bit of blue in it. I'll show you guys right here. It's just a gorgeous shade. Ridiculously gorgeous, so smooth, and that formula is the formula that sets apart, you know, ColourPop eyeshadows. So some of these shades in here were really, really impressive, some weren't, but overall, these just aren't colors that make me excited. I feel like I could smudge some of these darker shades on the lower lash line, kind of like what I did today. I had a little bit of a magenta on the lower lash line and then just kind of did a more neutral, pinky toned lid. But overall, this palette was a little bit harder for me to work with just because of the colors, and I felt like a lot of those deeper shades were a little bit more chalky and took more time to blend. So these last three palettes that I'm going to show you guys were honestly the stars of the show for me. I felt like these were the palettes I would legitimately purchase with my own money, which is really, really cool because I love when that happens. When products are sent to me, I want to be willing to purchase it with my own money. The Royals palette, if I didn't have the Modern Renaissance and I didn't want to pay for the Modern Renaissance, I would totally buy the Royals palette. But these three are ones that I was just really impressed with. One more than the other. The Aphrodite palette was okay, but the Athena palette, excuse me, blew me out of the water. It was so beautiful. So first we'll talk about the Inferno palette. This came in a box just like the others did. It is also cruelty-free and from Bad Habit, and the packaging on this is really, really nice. I love that they have more of a textured packaging on this. It has a mirror and these beautiful shades inside. There are 12 eyeshadows, and this palette retails for $12. And I believe this is a dupe for the Naked Heat palette from Urban Decay. I probably already said that, but you know, we'll just say it again. This palette was amazing. This was the first one I tested out and I loved every single shade. I thought the quality was really, really good. Even on this deep shade Smolder, which is a super dark chocolatey brown, it is very, very similar to the dark eyeshadow in the Dream Street palette from ColourPop with the Kathleen Lights collab, which let me grab and swatch for you guys. But that's what this dark shade reminded me of. It reminded me of this shade right here, which is the shade Elfish. Picked up the same, was a little bit, not necessarily chalky or chunky, but had a little bit more pigment when you touched it. And then when you swatch it out, very, very similar. I loved it. And it blended beautifully on the eye, and I love using those dark shades for liner. And so This Inferno palette blew me away. And just so you guys can see, I'm going to do live swatches of their metallic shades that are in here. So it's the shade Flames. It's a little dust on that. Lit, Blaze, and Ignite. I'm going to just swatch those for you guys. Literally, these are all like one swipe swatches. Oh, I'm blown away. And that is what they look like. Just beautiful. This palette was really impressive. The mattes were really lovely. Now the one shade in here that I was really disappointed by was the shade White Hot, which is a metallic white. This is so powdery and so chunky, and I feel like when you swatch it, it's just impossible to build up and still has that kind of chunky appearance to it, even when applied wet. So I was a little disappointed by that shade, but everything else in this palette was really, really impressive, and the mattes were beautiful, the metallics were beautiful, and this one was definitely worth the price. I didn't want to buy the Naked Heat palette because it's like $50 for an eyeshadow palette. This, I would definitely pay $12 for, wouldn't even think twice. The Bad Habit Inferno palette, 2 thumbs up from me. Really liked that one, really good. Okay, next we're going to talk about my favorite palette of all, the Bad Habit Athena palette, which, let me grab it. It also came in a box like, trying to put it back in the box, like so. Came in a box, cruelty-free from Bad Habit. This has 18 eyeshadows. The packaging is so good on this one. It's really, really sturdy, and it has a really nice magnet where you gotta pull a little. Huge mirror, which I really, really appreciate. And here are all of the shades. This is gonna be your dupe for the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk eyeshadow palette, which retails for $65, and this Athena palette retails for $12, which is really, really impressive. Like I've said a million times, full swatches will be at the end of this video, but I love this palette. This makes me want to buy the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette, although it is still kind of up in the air on whether or not Huda Beauty is cruelty-free. So if you are someone who is a cruelty-free shopper, you should get the Athena palette, because not only is it, what, $43 cheaper, but it is cruelty-free. Some of the most impressive, beautiful shades in here are honestly, again, all of the metallics are to die for, and then even the mattes in this palette are just beautiful. I love that there's a bunch of transition shades. You have this really nice lid shade that can go all over the lid, and these deep dark crease shades that just make any look intense, and this purple, this beautiful matte purple, which is insane. Let me swatch just a couple of these metallics because I have to. They're so pretty. So there are some of the shades, and they're beautiful. A lot of these are duochrome, which is just insanely gorgeous. And then another one that is duochrome that I want to put on my inner corner, honestly, right now, is this shade Cunning. It is this yellow gold with a pink flip. Oh, I'm dying. That is so pretty. So, my camera died while I was up washing swatches off my hands, so that I can show you all a little bit of this one. This palette's really nice. A lot of the metallics are chunky. Why am I saying it's nice? This palette I don't like. Actually, I take back everything I said. I don't really like this palette. I feel like a lot of the metallics are really chunky. The mattes in this are really, really nice, and I'm really impressed with this black. Honestly, this black is a really, really nice black. I would say it's as good as the black in the Retro Love palette. And you know, it's hard to come by a really, really good black eyeshadow, so that's really, really cool. A lot of the metallics are just, they're just okay. I felt like a lot of them, and I'll see if you can see this on my fingers, a lot of them are just really chunky, and you can even see as I'm trying to pick up this swatch, there's just chunks of metallic just falling out of it. It's like Subculture with metallics. A lot of the shades are just really, really chunky, and overall I just felt like this was one of those palettes that I would pass on. The unique shades in this one, honestly, is the black, and then there's this really beautiful hot pink shade right here, which is the shade Flirt, which was really impressive and a really gorgeous, perfect, excuse me, I'm burping, Barbie pink matte. And I loved this shade. I thought this one was really, really good. But overall, I probably wouldn't purchase this palette, and I'm now cleaning swatches off again. This is the part of the video where I start like, I start not being able to handle life and I get distracted and I'm like, I've been filming for 20 minutes and then I gotta go through and film a voiceover for swatches. But if I had to go through and purchase palettes, this one would not be on my list. The two that I would purchase would be the Athena palette and the Inferno palette. I thought these two were amazing and I would actually purchase with my own money. All the other ones that are the Anastasia Beverly Hills dupes, I would say skip out on the Aura and Retro Love, skip out on the Prism and Subculture. These are just not palettes you can use every day or even once a week. I feel like it's just a mess and a lot of dark shades. The Royals palette is beautiful and you guys know I love the Modern Renaissance, so that dupe video will be coming soon. I don't want to talk anymore on those until I've posted that dupe video, but overall that is my haul. And now without further ado, let's get into the swatches and I'll try to do a little bit more in-depth talking with those swatches as well. Alright, so here is the Royals palette. This one is absolutely beautiful. It is a perfect dupe for the Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance palette. I'm so excited for you guys to see that video because it's really impressive how similar these shades are. The light metallic shades were absolutely gorgeous, so pigmented, beautiful to use on the inner corner or all over the lid. They built up really nicely. I still feel like they applied a little bit better wet than dry. The ones from Anastasia are just a little bit more intense in their pigment, but these are still beautiful. And here's all of the swatches. They turned out really good, and on the eye they apply as beautifully as they swatch. Those deeper shades, like I will say in a moment, really do work when built up. I want to point out that some of these darker shades are a little patchy and powdery upon application, but I'm just going to show you what it looks like with a brush so that you can really see that these shadows do blend nicely even if their swatches aren't perfect. So I'm just picking up the shade Grand. This is the dupe for Cypress Umber from the Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, and I'm going to just swatch that. Refocus. This is the finger swatch. I'm going to just use a brush and swatch that right here so that you can see the color does blend. It's not too patchy at all, but it doesn't have that same dark pigment that Cypress Umber has. I will be doing a more in-depth video comparing these two palettes, but I just kind of wanted to show y'all. All of the other shades swatched really, really nicely, and a lot of the lighter shades that you see on the left side here were actually really, really good quality, and I really enjoyed. I apologize, guys, that my camera is not focusing. There we go. Alrighty, so here is our dupe for the Prism palette. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I just feel like these colors are not for me. The mattes are really pretty, the metallics are beautiful too, but I just feel like this palette isn't one that you can really use every single day. It's a very unique palette for special occasions or special unique eyeshadow looks. Here are the swatches, and you know, I was able to get all of these to swatch beautifully, even that really tricky neon yellow. Overall though, I don't think this palette is worth it to purchase, even if it's beautiful. If these are shades you would use, go ahead and pick this one up, but for me, it was a no. So I was actually pretty impressed with how this palette swatched and performed. All of the matte shades were really easy to build up and were absolutely beautiful. There were a couple chunky metallic shades, but I will go into that. Whoa, moving the camera. Let's try that again. Okay. These two shades right here were just a little bit chunky, but you were able to really blend them and build them up, as well as this blue shade down here. Everything else was really, really smooth, and that matte black was actually extremely impressive. That was a really, really nice shade, and it blends beautifully with a brush as well. So here is our dupe for the Subculture palette. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Stay away from the Subculture, you guys. I mean, all of those really light shades like the macaroni and cheese yellow and the mustard are beautiful. The mattes were honestly really nice in this palette, but it's just those darker shades I just felt like were so tricky to work with. And in this palette specifically, you'll see in the swatches, the two metallics all the way to the left, that pinky metallic and the yellow metallic, were just a little bit chunky and hard to work with, and no. For the most part, I didn't really have too many problems with this palette. I thought the shade Youth as well as Revolution were both beautiful, easy to blend, easy to swatch, full pigment, whereas shades like Free Love and Maud were a little bit patchy, and I think it's just because they are those blue shades where even on my finger swatch you can see it's just a little bit chunky and patchy, and that's just how it translates onto the skin. Even with the brush, it's just hard to work with. I just felt like overall, this palette just wasn't worth it because of those dark shades. The maroon, the plum, and those blues and greens were just a pain in the butt. If you love the more neutral shades and the warm tone shades in this palette, especially, you know, that bright gold, maybe this palette is the one for you, but for me, it just wasn't good. This shade was beautiful. This peachy tone was fantastic. But I don't know, you guys, I just think we are done with the Subculture. It's time to move on, and good riddance to the Subculture palette. My arm is having a couple issues with staining, so I apologize. As we move forward, just give my arm a break. Alrighty, this Inferno palette, oh my goodness, you guys. This was the best of the best, a beautiful dupe for the Naked Heat palette. Every shade was impressive except that metallic white shade was just a little bit chunky, and I don't think it was a shade you could ever get to work. But honestly, most of y'all probably already have a shade like that in your collection. Every single one of these was beautiful. And you'll see in the swatches, it just, I mean, it blew me away touching each shadow. The mattes were soft, the metallics were soft, and you can just see the difference. If you go back and look at the swatches of the Royals palette versus this palette, there's a difference. And I really, really love this one. I would love to do a look with this on my channel for you guys because these warm tones are beautiful. I take back everything I said about the Naked Heat palette. I've been completely converted. There's plummy tones and orange tones, and it's just to die for. So I was extremely impressed with this palette. I thought the shade Flames as well as Ignite were both extremely beautiful, high pigmented metallics, as well as Lit. Blaze was a little bit chunky, but still performed beautifully. All the mattes were really nice. Shoulder was a little bit Smolder, oh my god. Smolder was a little bit chunky, and Burn took a little bit of time to build up the pigmentation, but overall this palette was beautiful, and I think this might have been my favorite one of all of them. Okay, I thought the Inferno palette was my favorite, but it's not. The Athena is my favorite. Actually, if we're doing everyday, the Inferno was my favorite, but if we are being fun and creative, this Athena palette blew me out of the water. I don't even know what to say. The metallics were gorgeous. The mattes were gorgeous. I mean, look at all of those colors together. You will notice I left out that Ultra Glitter shade for my swatches because I have a couple of words to say on that one. It was absolutely terrible. But all of the mattes were to die for. I don't think I had a problem with a single metallic shade. It was just extremely impressive, and you know, I gotta give it to Huda Beauty for even creating the Desert Dusk palette. This one was just mesmerizing. I think it's such a unique palette, and it's one that everyone needs in their collection. Like, I'm literally going to say that for spring. It's perfect, so you might want to pick this one up. Overall, I was actually really happy with this palette. The only troublesome shades I had in using them was Lore and Power. Were just a little bit chunky, had a little bit of fallout, but they blended really beautifully, and you can see that on my swatches. And then this shade down here, Wisdom, was just a little bit patchy, needed to be built up with 2 swatches of the brush and the fingertip, but was a beautiful, beautiful shade once fully blended out. These 2 shades, Gleam and Epic, are absolutely gorgeous and so unique and really, really pretty shades. It made me very curious about what the actual Huda Beauty palette is like. And then this shade, Daring, is pure glitter. So I'm going to swatch this for you guys right now, but this shade is, it feels like Play-Doh when you touch it. It's super chunky. You can see that it is indented already, and that's what the shade looks like, but you just have to barely touch this and it picks up a ton of product. And let me make sure we are all focused. And this is kind of how it swatches. So this shade is just chunky glitter. I find it really, really hard to work with, and I don't know if you could build this up. I'll try again and go in with a second swatch. Overall, I just feel like the shade is kind of hard to use, and I wish it had been more of a champagne glitter topper instead of a shade like this where you can tell when it is being extremely patchy. So this is really beautiful. I'm glad they decided to include a glitter, but I just feel like the rest of the shades are so gorgeous, and it doesn't tie in with them. And maybe I'll just blame Huda Beauty on this one for including it in their first palette, but I don't know. This shade is a take it or leave it for me. I didn't feel like it was a unique shade, and I felt like it's extremely patchy. Okay, last but not least, but definitely least, is the Aphrodite palette. This is just not for me. I feel like the shades are so pinky in this. The metallics were just nothing to write home about, and the only shade that I really loved was the matte black and the pink. You'll see here's what two of the metallics look like, and they're just chunky. I just felt like, I don't know, and the swatches aren't even that bad, but y'all, this isn't for me. Some of y'all probably are looking at this and love the colors. For me, this was a pass, but you know, it's honestly up to what y'all want in your collection. So I did feel like the mattes in this palette were a little bit easier to blend than the Royals palette. They really were. The only problem for me is that I just felt like it was really hard to create a complete look with this. You do have some of those transition shades and those deeper browns and blacks, but I don't know, you guys. Let me just show you a couple of swatches. Okay, I am struggling. I'm picking up these two metallic shades for you guys just to show you how chunky they are, and I don't know why I'm pointing at them for so long. I must have been saying something when I recorded this, but my audio dropped out, which is why I'm doing a voiceover, so this is fun. But do you see how chunky this shade is? It literally falls apart when you touch it, and not in a good way, and it's so patchy. It's ridiculous that you could go over it a couple of times and there are still areas where it skips, and it's supposed to be a metallic shade. That was just my biggest problem with this palette, is I felt like you couldn't actually make a complete look, and then on top of that, to have some of the more usable metallic shades be a little bit chunky and patchy was just so disappointing. Even this copper tone is just chunky, y'all. And you can see there's sparse areas, and this is how it translates onto the lid, and it just makes fallout everywhere, and it is not worth it to use. Well, y'all, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you again, Hush, for sending me these palettes for review. I really, really enjoyed them. I enjoyed getting to swatch them and form opinions. There was at least one very impressive shade in every single palette. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I wanted to make sure I was honest throughout. If I had to give you guys two palettes to purchase, it would be the Athena and the Inferno palette. These were beautiful. So yeah, that is it. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, comment that down below. My most recent videos will be right here, and I'll see you guys next time on my channel. Bye, y'all!